Welcome guys to a tutorial about Adobe After Effects Expressions. I'm going to show you some expressions and how they work in After Effects and how we use them to optimize our workflow on our videos on our main YouTube channel, youtube.com/64bits. Go check that out and subscribe right there and right here. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you a couple of expressions, one of them being loop in, one of them being loop out, a couple of variations on the loop out expression, and also one that combines loop in and out together. We're doing wiggle, we're doing a little bit of time expressions, some value expressions, and if you look in the top left corner, you can see that little audio wave. We're going to do that as well. A lot of expressions, and everything you see here is done with expressions except for some keyframes. So let's get started. All right, so I got my bouncing ball factory here, but as you can see, it's not doing anything yet. You can see a couple of keyframes in the bouncing ball, so I'm cheating a little bit. So let's start making everything move, and one of the first things that I'm going to show you are the wiggle. And wiggle is nothing more than just adding a little bit of motion on top of any property you give it to. So for example, on the oven right there, I want the oven to shake a little bit, and now I can add keyframes that can do all that, but obviously I can also add a little expression to make that go really fast. So I'm going to turn this open, I'm going to go to transform, I'm going to go to position. I can also press the P on the keyboard, that's a lot easier, a lot cleaner, and I got the little position value right there. If I Alt or Option on Mac click this little stopwatch, so Alt click it, I will twirl it open, and it will go to a black screen. Don't worry about it. It will say refresh disabled, finished editing text to refresh this view. So don't worry about that. As soon as I click outside of this box, it will go back to normal. But if I alt click this, you can see transform.position. That will just say like, hey, look at the position, look at those values, and that's the position value, right? But I want to change it up a little bit. So I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to start typing wiggle. And as you can see, I don't need to know the expression completely. I can just type in the first letters and it will show me a couple of options, and I can see that the center one, the wiggle, is actually the best one, so that's the one that I want, and I will just press enter. And now I gotta put something in between those parentheses, and those are two values. The first one is how many times a second you want this to wiggle, and the second one is how much you want it to wiggle by. So let's say 3 times a second. So something like that. I don't know, maybe more. Let's change this up later. And then a comma, not a dot, a comma, and I will say like, let's do a big number, 100. I'm gonna close it up with a semicolon. I don't have to because it's just one line of code, but it's just good practice. So I'm gonna click outside, and right now I got the wiggle expression. I got no errors, so perfect. Let's press render. Okay, so that's not completely what I wanted yet. It's wiggling all right, but it's wiggling way too big. That's not a shake. So I think it needs to shake a lot more violent. So instead of 3 times a second, let's do 15 times a second. That's a big number. And obviously it needs to shake, not move all over the place. So maybe we'll go with 10. And then let's try that. There we go. That looks a lot more like a shake, right? So that's perfect. That's one. That's only on position, but you can wiggle anything you want. You can wiggle any value. And one of the other values that you can animate is that little fire. So if I double click on the oven, there we go, and I can see that little fire here. I made that a separate layer, and I press T of transparency or opacity, grab that value right there, and I'm gonna wiggle it a little bit. But obviously I'm gonna do that with a little code. So if I Alt or Option click that little opacity thing, and I can start typing wig, and I don't need to even finish it. I'm just gonna press enter. I'm gonna say, okay, how much times a second? Let's guess. Let's do 3. And by how much? Well, I want it to go off all the way and then on all the way, so let's do 100. Let's play that. Well, little problem, it will stay on too long for like a couple of seconds, like on. That's because like it's actually trying to take that number 100 and wiggle it from 0 to 200, but you can't have an opacity of 200 because something cannot be more visible than 100%. So let's change that up a little bit. Let's do 50, And now we'll actually start wiggling from 50 to 150. Still can't do that, but luckily it will take that number you fill in here. So if I type in 50 here, it will actually go from 0 to 100, from 0 to 50 to 100. So let's see how that looks. All right, that looks kind of good. Right, that's a flickering coal flame thing. It's working just fine. All right, so let's do it on one more thing, and that's the little flame. Got it here under platform and barrel. I got the fire right there, and I can add a wiggle to that as well. So right there, I wanted to do that. So if I press S for scale, Alt or Option, click that little stopwatch again. I will start typing, wiggle, and I will say, well, let's do 3 times a second, and then do 25%, right? Because that's just the value. I click outside. Let's see how that works. And there we go. Obviously, that's not a realistic fire, but try to use your imagination. You can use that little wiggle thing on anything you want. So now let's continue with loop in and loop out, and those are really favorites of mine because they save a lot of time. I got a little platform here. I'm going to click that little solo button so I just see that little platform, and I got a couple of keyframes. If you're not seeing them, you can press U to see all the keyframes, or I'm going to press P for the position keyframes. And I already animated the keyframes, but you know, it's only doing that once. Now, what you would normally do is just, okay, well, what needs to loop forever? So I'm just going to press Control C, Control V, and then V, and then Control V, and then Control, and then, okay, cool. But what if I want to change one of those keyframes, and I want to, no, well, actually, I have to redo the copy paste thing all over again. So I don't want that. I just want to set those keyframes once, and then be done with it. And I can do that with another really simple expression. If I Alt or Option click that stopwatch, I can start typing loop, and you can see loop out right there. I don't need loop in because that's doing the keyframes that way. I want to make it loop forever that way. And let's press enter. Now I don't have to type anything. I can close with a semicolon. I actually didn't do that here, so let's do that good practice, and let's do it everywhere. And if I just don't type anything between those parentheses, it will automatically pick the default, which is cycle, and you can see it will now loop forever, saving you a lot of time. And if I click that right there and I will move this keyframe, obviously it will do that forever. Be sure you don't add another keyframe here because it will just loop that forever. Just make sure you got one motion, no keyframes before, no keyframes after. And there we go. That works. Saves a lot of time. Let's go to a little bit more advanced version of loop out. And if I look at that little ball platform right there, you can see the bouncing ball loop. Well, not loop actually. You can see it move, but it's not ending up in the barrel. I want to do that. Right, so if I double click that, you can see that there's keyframes inside that ball platform, and here we are. There we go. Actually, I want it to continue its motion. I want it to go, well, continue, whatever. Obviously, you can add a keyframe, etc., etc. But for now, I want to do it in an expression. So let's do that. Alt-click it, start typing loop. And if I add double parentheses right there, shift double parentheses, there we go. You can see it will give you 4 options. Again, you don't have to type. After Effects will do it for you. It can do cycle, offset, ping pong, and continue. Now, cycle is the default, so if you don't type anything, it will just do cycle, just loop it. You can see it right here. It will not give you the results that you want. See, it will just loop it right after. So you don't want that. You want it to continue. Continue. So if I do that, it will actually take those last keyframes and take the speed of that, just move it on. There we go. It will just continue that motion forever. And that's perfect. That's just what we want. And if I would make that keyframe closer together, it will actually make that motion faster too. If I make it slower, it will actually continue that motion slower. So that's perfect. For now, I'm happy. Loop out, continue. Perfect. There's one more, and that's a loop out offset that I like. So if I look at this bouncing ball here on the conveyor belt, you can go all the way down. You can see a position and a scale. And if I go here, well, I wanted to loop out, but I wanted to keep the offset. So if I start typing here and I will just go loop out, well, you can see it actually starts looping that, and I don't want that. So I Control Z out of that, and I just start typing loop out, double parentheses. I will say offset right there, offset. It will actually start completing that animation. It actually starts looping that, but it will keep the offset. So it will go on forever and ever and ever. There's only one problem. It's only doing that on the position. I also wanted to do that on the scale. I wanted to squash and stretch. It stopped squashing and stretching. That's not what it's supposed to do. So let's add a expression there too. Let's go loop out. And actually I just want the regular cycles, so I'm not going to type anything in there. I can do offset, but in this case it wouldn't make much sense. I just wanted to loop that, and if I type that in, there we go. Perfect. And that's all of them for loop in and loop out, but there's one extra one that I got. I hardly type it myself. I always like have like a little cheat sheet right there. I'll show you my cheat sheet. Got it right there. And obviously I can make presets, but for now I just like the cheat sheet or like this. And I got a little code here which is loop in and loop out. Now obviously that's a little longer and I don't want to type that myself. There's a lot of stuff that I don't want to type myself, and sometimes I figure something out and I just copy and paste it here, which is awesome. But let's say I want to have loop in, loop out, and I got the code right here. I put the code in the description as well, because that expression is a little longer and I don't want to teach you how to type it because it uses a lot of extra code with keyframes and if then else scripts. You don't want that. Not for this tutorial. This is a really basic tutorial, but I just wanted to show you that if you use this one, and I put the keyframes right there. Well, if I set loop out, but it's never looping in. That really sucks because I wanted to loop in and out. And normally I would just put my keyframes at the beginning and be done with it. But if I have a really complex character animation where I offset a couple of things, where it's idling or looping or waving, whatever, I wanted to loop in and out. So if I just paste that in there, there we go. I'm gonna make this a little longer. That little first line is just the comment, so I know what it does. And if I move those keyframes up, on the right side it will loop out, and on the left side it will loop in. So it doesn't matter where I put my keyframes, how I tweak them. That little platform will just move no matter what. There we go, which is perfect, and it saves me a lot of time. So I'm gonna keep it as this is. Again, copy paste that script if you want. It's really handy. I keep it on me all the time when I'm animating and compositing. It saves you a lot of time. So I got this little bouncing ball right here, and I could even add a loop out on that ball on the time, actually on the time remapping. So if you know what time remapping is, that's perfect. If you don't, you can skip this step, and I'll explain that another time. And you can just Control D these balls there, so I'll loop. Obviously you need to do it a lot, so I will show you how to do it right here on time, and then enable time remapping, or Control Alt T. There we go. And I can actually, you can see those two keyframes right there, and that's actually something that manipulates the time. But luckily you can also alt click that. You don't have to, but you can, and type in loop out, and it will actually loop the composition and it will loop the time right there. See? Perfect. Saves a lot of time. You have one composition and all the animations with all the balls, etc., etc. And on a conveyor belt, I would just go Control D, and how many balls you want in there. Keep it simple for now. So if I play this, it will just multiply those balls, which is perfect. Right, so we moved those little balls right there. I'm gonna turn that off real quick because I don't want to be distracted by it. And you can see there's a little gear here, and there's more gears here, and I want those to move. But instead of setting keyframes, and I don't know how long this animation is going to be, maybe it's going to end up like 30 seconds, maybe 20 seconds, I don't know. So I want to have like a little rotation here that just moves over time, and that's the next expression, which is time. If I alt click the rotation and I start typing time and nothing else, so we start moving really slowly over time. There we go, super slow. That's because 1 second is 1 degree, and 2 seconds is 2 degrees. 3 seconds, 3 degrees. So I want to multiply that number by a lot, by let's say 500. So 1 second is now 500. Well, actually 360 plus 140. So it will actually move really fast right now. There we go. That's perfect. Actually, I want the other screws to move as well, but I don't want to type that same code over and over again. So if I alt-click the stopwatch and I gotta go time and times to 500, and that will take a lot of time. Maybe I will copy and paste this or something. Click and then go Control V, etc., etc. And now 3 of them move, but that is still a lot of work. So I don't want to do that. So instead of doing that, I'll just right-click the rotation. I will say Copy Expressions. Click all the other conveyor gears, and I will press Control V. And it will automatically know that it needs to paste that to the rotation because I click rotation here. And if I start playing that now, voila, all of them are done. If I want to see all the expressions, I can just obviously just twirl it open, but I can also select them and press EE. Not E for effects, but EE for expressions. Just twice in quick succession. There we go. It will show everything. Just going to close that down. So now everything works across time. All right, now let's do this on the gears. I want this gear to move right and this gear to move left, or clockwise and counterclockwise. And I can just take the rotation of this left gear and I'll alt-click it and I will say time. Let's say times 100. Otherwise it's going to move way too slow. And let's play that. There we go. That looks good. Now I want that other gear to move as well. But instead of typing in times 100, which obviously is going to give me a bad result because that one is also going clockwise, I will need to do a minus 100. So now it actually moves in the opposite direction. Well, there's one problem though. They don't really connect. A gear is not supposed to do that. A gear is supposed to move like this and not like that, obviously. So that little expression doesn't really work yet. So I could just say like, hey, maybe if I offset it, wait, why doesn't this work anymore? I can't move this number anymore. That's bad. Well, actually, it's basically looking at the rotation and we'll say like, hey, grab the expression and that's it, because that's what I'm going to do. Well, I can just add a little code behind it that will say like, hey, also look at that value. What if I just type plus value? I click it. Oops. Value. There we go. If I do this now, well, they will still move correctly, but I can now also change that number. So I can interlock them perfectly. There we go. And there we go. That's perfect. I just needed to add that little value to say like, hey, that expression, look at the time, times 100, but also at the current value of whatever you were on right now. So I can still keyframe that, I can still do anything I want with it. Now the last one I'm really excited for because I want to have this line dance on the audio right there. If I double clicked on the TV, I'm in the TV composition right now, and if I play this, you can actually hear the music, which is great. If it's not open, you can actually look at the waveform by clicking open the audio and then the waveform. And if I listen to that, you can actually see the sound waves. But I want to convert these waves, sound waves, into a wave on the line. But I can't really just link that to audio. I need to have some data, I need to have some numbers, and I don't have those yet. Luckily, I can do that really easily by right-clicking the MP3 that has actual audio waveform. I'm going to right-click that. I will say Keyframe Assistant, and I will go Convert Audio to Keyframes. There we go. And I will get a layer that is actually nothing and empty and null with all kinds of keyframes in there. If I open it up, I will see effects and I will see left channel, right channel. Well, I don't care about those. I want to have both channels. And you can see a lot of keyframes. Like zoom in, you can see like a lot of keyframes. If I scrub through them, you can actually see that number go up from 0 to, let's say, I think about 15 or 18, 19, I see 20, I think. There we go. So a lot. There we go. So what I can do is link to that value, but what do I link to it, right? Because it's just a line. Well, that's really easy. If I open this up, and it's a line, I made it with the path tool, and I will see the contents, and I will see right there, add. And if I click that little arrow, I can see a lot of different options, and one of them is wiggle paths. So if I click that, you can automatically see that it's trying to wiggle that path, which is great. If I open that up, and I do more size, you can see something going wrong. There's a blue filling there, and I'll change that in a second. And I give it more detail. You can see that it kind of looks like a sound wave. So basically, I want to animate bum 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 bum. I kind of want to animate that, right? So what I could do, let me turn that fill off real quick. So I open up shape, and I see the fill right there, the blue shape. There we go. And I get rid of it. Close that off with the eye. I could also delete it, but I just turned off the eye. So basically what I want to do is grab the size and go bum 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 bum. But I already got that data. I got it right there. So if I keep that open up and I alt click this little size stopwatch, I will say like, hey, whatever you got here, I want that slider. And I release it. Now it gives me a really long code, and again, that looks scary, but it's really not. If you don't touch it, don't worry about it. Basically it says like, hey, look at this comp, look at that layer, look at that effect, and grab that value from that slider. It's a long code, but you don't have to write it yourself. Just pick whip it. Not this pick whip, not the parental link pick whip, but the one that comes with the expression. Select it, release, and you're done. So if I release that now and I play it, well, actually I can see that sound wave going up, but it's not really what I want. I want that value to be a lot bigger, and that's really easy. So what I can do is type asterisk or times, multiply, and I will say like, well, let's do 10 times 10. So I'll grab that, whatever that number this is, and it will go times 10. So if I click out of it, and I do it now, there we go. That's perfect, that's what I wanted. And there you have it. We animated a bouncing ball factory with as less keyframes as possible. And as you can see, we did a loop out, a loop in. We've combined the two with the loop in and loop out secret recipe that I have. We used wiggle on a lot of properties, and we used the time expression and the value expression. We even did a little bit of magic with the audio amplitude conversion, where we turn audio into keyframes and actually use that information to animate a moving line. So there you have it. That's all of him. I made a little chapter so you can go back and look at the different expressions and the different parts of the bouncing ball factory, and I'll see you next time. Also, be sure to visit our main YouTube channel, youtube.com/60forbits, where you can see all our animations, and see you guys next time.